This video is going to go over the final detailing and cleaning of the Pandora's boxes that my Ceramics 1 students are doing. This is the last in the construction series of the playlist of the Pandora's box. Check out the entire playlist to see how we made the models, how we assembled it, and also how we will eventually finish them. Now, my plan is to take this cleaned form and transform it into a very decorative box. I intend to use some of the hardware kind of idea that I did in a previous video. I have little stamps that I'll be using for that, and I want to make it look like it has metal or leather strips on the corners. I'm dramatically speeding up the cleaning process of this. Now, what I'm starting off by doing is cleaning up the little flange that sticks down. I'm just really trying to make it super smooth, cleaning up the interior of where that flange was attached up on the inside because it inevitably needs to be a little bit cleaned once you take the pot apart. And I'm just trying to clean up the interior edge. So you can see I really tried to make sure that this interior edge was smooth. You don't want anything that's sharp, like if you drag your fingers along there and you feel like a burr, you want to make sure you get that off because any burrs will be sharp when it's glaze fired. And I'm just cleaning up a little bit more on the interior corners there. And now to get some design details, I'm using one of the graphic templates, and I'm going to just be cutting a three-dimensional oval that will go over basically that kind of a keyhole kind of a slot. So here I have some little ridges where it's a little bit rough. One of the tricks that you can do when you cut things out is if you put, say, something like a piece of plastic or a very soft piece of fabric over it, you can just take your finger and smooth it, and I can even round it somewhat. So as I peel that off, it's really nice and clean and ready for attachment. That plastic trick is something that can be used anytime to help smooth something. And I score and slip generously whenever I attach. Now remember, this clay is in the Leatherhard state because I've been keeping it in the damp box. If it were much drier, you might have difficulty adding, but this is all uniformly Leatherhard because our plaster damp boxes have been keeping it nice and moist. Now I'm rolling out some thin, even coils, and then I'm flattening with the wooden roller. And these are going to be some of the accents that I had talked about. And I'm just using a straight edge there to help perhaps trim the edges so it looks a little bit more uniform and not wiggly on the edge like it did when I rolled the coil. And I'm just going to trim the top too. Of course, you could use a ruler. I'm just using the straight edge that I had there. And then once again, I'm using that plastic, and I'm going to soften up that edge just to help round out that edge a little bit. It just helps to clean it. Now I'm going to score wherever I want it to be attached, score and slip generously, and score the attachment as well. Don't just stick your items on. They will fall off as they dry. So you score and slip, and then pretty much embed it with your fingers. Make sure that it's making good contact. There I'm just trimming out around that key registration area. And this is going to look, like a little metal accent, basically, that's going to be holding it together. So I'm going to keep on doing that. I'm going to have quite a few more. There I'm just kind of tidying up those edges as I put it on. sealing the edges with slip as I attach. And then once again, I'm just kind of sealing the underneath side of that band that I attached by smoothing it with water on my finger with a little bit of slip, and that will help to seal it so it doesn't pull away there on the bottom edge. Just use good craft as you are attaching anything. And just a quick recap on what we're looking for components of good craft. Number one, you want to make sure that the clay is always similar moisture content when you put two pieces together. They have to shrink together or else they will crack. Number two, score and slip your attachments to help them stay on so they don't fall off. Number three, blend attachments whenever possible or seal the edges with slip and a brush. And lastly, try to eliminate burrs, dents, and messy areas. And I'm just continuing cutting more strips and again softening the edge, scoring, slipping, and attaching. And then I will also seal those edges on the top with a rib and my fingers, and the bottom underneath I'm sealing with a paintbrush and a rib, making sure that it's nicely attached. Now, I did put the orange towel over it as I was working just to help keep it from drying out too much. You can always put yours in your bin if you're working on getting details ready. But mine had been sitting out for over an hour, so I wanted to keep it from drying too much. And now this is a thicker, fatter one because I'm going to be doing the corners and I'm overlapping it on the corners. So it's going on the top and on the side. So it's a little bit thicker than the first one that I put on. And again, just tidying it up, sealing it with a wet brush, and then I'll do the vertical corners in the same manner. Notice I'm sticking it off the edge of the table a little bit as I do that. It just helps to get it down at the bottom a little bit more. Of course, you could put it on a turntable and do the same thing. But to have it hang off the edge makes it a little bit more easy to get that bottom blended. And again, everything is scored and slipped, and I'm just piecing in there the little pieces. Now I'm cutting what looks like a little keyhole area there on that registration area. And just filling in all the little details that perhaps I need to still attach. Now, once I've attached those side pieces, now I'm going to add some detailing to make it look like wood boards. Because I want this to look a little bit like a chest. So I have these lines of the boards and maybe the grain of the wood that I'm trying to illustrate there. I'm using that Kemper triangle tipped tool that I enjoy so much for carving because it carves away the little pieces rather than just pushing it. And once I get done with the carved detail to make it look like boards, I'm adding on the handle on the lid, and I am going to add on the bottom strip there on the bottom edge of the side and the bottom. Again, just folding it over, making it look like, you know, if I had metal that was wrapped around on it. And the little handles there on the foam, those are going to be for the side, but I'll put those on a little bit later. I don't want to put them on until I get a little farther along. And then there we go, wrapping that around the edge. Now this will be the feet, and the feet, I'm going to make them basically look like gumdrops. So I've rolled a coil and cut the coil in equal sizes, and then I'm kind of making these gumdrop feet, and then I'm actually making it sort of sculpted to make it look like a claw foot, like a piece of furniture with a claw foot carved. And of course I'm slipping and scoring the little feet, and I'm also adding the detail on the bottom. Now I'm slipping and scoring and adding the little handles. And this next little bit, this is going to be a very, very time-consuming thing. I am going to score and slip little balls onto it to make it look like screws. And I have the little stamp that I made, and I showed in a previous video of how I'm making it look like screws, but you can do it without the stamp. So I'm marking where all of the little screw things are going to go, and I'm scoring, and notice all the little balls there on the table. So I make all these tiny little balls, and I score and slip all of the balls to it in the marked areas. And then once I get them slipped on there, then I use the little stamp and I just push to get the texture of the stamp. Of course, you could just take your thumb and flatten it and kind of mark it with you know, a needle tool. But this stamp was kind of a fun way. And this was pretty involved, but condensed down to make it much, much shorter. I'm not showing all the minutia that would be involved with the final cleaning, but this is what it looks like now in the Leatherhard stage. I would let it dry very slowly with a towel over it so nothing dries out too quickly. Then I would bisque fire it before we do the glazing, and that's another video.